He sat on that cold park bench every morning, dressed like a man who owned the world, yet staring into a darkness no one else could see, and the silence around him felt heavier than any noise, because once he had everything, and now even the sunlight meant nothing to him. People passed by without stopping, some whispered, some stared, but no one really saw him, not the man he used to be, not the quiet pain behind those dark glasses, because to them he was just a blind millionaire who had lost his sight and maybe deserved his fate. His name was Daniel, and not long ago he was powerful, respected, feared even, the kind of man whose decisions shaped lives, whose voice could silence a room, but all of that changed the night he lost his vision in an accident that people said was just bad luck, though deep down he knew it wasn't that simple. The man responsible still walked free, still laughed in public, still shook hands with politicians and investors, untouchable, admired, and dangerous. Daniel never spoke about it, not even when reporters tried to get a story out of him. He simply withdrew into a quiet world, where pride kept him standing, but loneliness slowly broke him inside. Every day he came to that same bench, holding his white cane, listening to footsteps and distant voices, pretending he was still part of life, even though he felt like a shadow of who he used to be. People pitied him, but pity never healed anything. Then one day, something different happened, something small, almost invisible to everyone else, but powerful enough to change everything. A young boy, no older than 10, sat down next to him without asking, without fear, just curiosity in his voice and warmth in his presence. The boy didn't treat him like a broken man, didn't whisper or hesitate, he simply said hello, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Daniel turned his head slightly, surprised, not used to such honesty, and for a moment he didn't reply, because it had been so long since someone spoke to him without judgment or pity. The boy waited, patient, then spoke again, asking simple questions, not about money or success, but about life, about what it felt like to sit there every day, about what he could hear when he couldn't see. Something inside Daniel shifted, a small crack in the wall he had built around himself, and he answered, quietly at first, choosing his words carefully, as if they mattered again. The boy listened like every word meant something, like Daniel wasn't invisible at all, and that alone brought a strange kind of comfort. Days passed, and the boy kept coming back, always at the same time, always sitting beside him, talking about school, about dreams, about small things that somehow felt big. Daniel began to wait for those moments, even if he never admitted it, even if he still carried the weight of everything he had lost. One afternoon, the boy asked a question that no one else had dared to ask. He asked why Daniel stopped fighting, why he accepted what happened, why he let the man who ruined his life walk freely without consequence. The question hit deep, sharper than any insult, because it was true, Daniel had given up. Not because he was weak, but because the system was stronger. The man who destroyed him had influence, power, connections that turned truth into silence. Daniel explained this slowly, his voice calm but heavy, telling the boy that sometimes justice doesn't come, sometimes the world chooses the wrong side, and all you can do is survive. The boy didn't argue, didn't interrupt, he just listened, but his silence carried something else, something determined. The next day, the boy arrived later than usual, his breathing uneven, as if he had been running, and without hesitation he placed something in Daniel's hand. Something small, cold, and unfamiliar. Daniel frowned slightly, feeling the shape, confused, and asked what it was. The boy's voice was different now, steady, serious. He said it was a recording, proof, something that could change everything. Daniel's heart skipped, not out of hope, but fear, because hope had hurt him before. The boy explained that he had overheard a conversation, that the man responsible for the accident had been talking openly, believing no one was listening, boasting about how he had arranged everything, how he made sure Daniel would never stand in his way again. The boy had recorded it on his phone, without fully understanding how dangerous it could be, but knowing it was important. Daniel's hands trembled slightly, not from weakness, but from the weight of possibility. Something he had buried long ago was suddenly alive again. He wanted to believe, but experience told him to be careful, to expect disappointment, to protect himself from another fall. He thanked the boy, his voice quiet, almost distant, because inside he was fighting a storm of emotions, fear, anger, and something that felt like hope. That night, Daniel listened to the recording, alone in his silent home, and every word felt like a piece of truth breaking through the darkness. The voice was clear, unmistakable, arrogant, confident, the voice of a man who believed he would never be held accountable. Daniel sat there for a long time, letting the reality sink in, realizing that this small act from a boy had given him something he thought he would never have again, a chance. But he didn't rush, didn't act impulsively, because he had learned patience the hard way. He knew that justice required more than evidence, it required timing, strategy, and courage. Days turned into weeks, and Daniel began to move quietly, reaching out to people he trusted, people who still believed in truth, even if they were few. The boy continued to visit him, unaware of the full impact of what he had done, still talking about simple things, still bringing light into Daniel's dark world. Daniel never told him everything, but he made sure the boy knew one thing, that his courage mattered, that sometimes even the smallest actions can change lives. The powerful man, the one who thought himself untouchable, continued his life as usual, appearing in public, smiling for cameras, unaware that his world was slowly closing in around him. Then one morning, everything changed. News broke suddenly, headlines spreading like wildfire, investigations reopened, recordings leaked, voices exposed, and for the first time, the man who once controlled everything looked vulnerable. Daniel didn't celebrate, didn't smile, he simply sat on his bench, listening to the world react, feeling something inside him settle, not joy, but peace. The boy arrived as usual, curious about the noise, about the excitement, and Daniel turned to him, removing his glasses for the first time, revealing eyes that could not see, but carried a depth that spoke louder than vision ever could. He thanked the boy, not with grand words, but with honesty, telling him that what he did mattered more than he could ever understand. The boy smiled, simple and pure, not fully grasping the weight of it all, but knowing he had helped. Justice didn't come with fireworks or applause, it came quietly, steadily, as truth replaced lies, as power lost its shield, and as one man who had been broken found a way to stand again, not because he regained his sight, but because he found something stronger, a reason to believe again. And in the end, it wasn't wealth, influence, or strength that changed everything, it was a small act of courage from a boy who refused to look away, who saw a man the world had forgotten, and reminded him that even in darkness, light can still find a way in.